Ezekiel Elliott has no more guaranteed money left on his contract.
The best and simplest thing would be to keep Zeke in Dallas, where I think he and the Cowboys might be most valuable for each other. I think there's incentive for both sides to figure it out.
So I think at this point, I've established a reputation with you guys for being very fair whenever it comes to the analysis of my favorite football team, along with all of the rivals in our same division. And I'm going to do the same exact thing here. And I must admit, this is a disaster. I mean, this is a very huge nightmare scenario. So buckle down, especially if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, because I'm going to hit you with a dose of reality. I'm not necessarily sure how you're going to feel about it. So before we get to the content, we are on the grind to 700,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet and you happen to watch my content, do me a little favor and hit that button for me. If you want to go the extra mile for me and make sure you're always tapped in and up to date with the latest and greatest NFL news, make sure you hit that bell. So now that we got all that out of the way, break. So I've made almost $5,000 playing this game over the past couple months and posting my picks and selections onto my Instagram story for you guys to follow them. And the game that I'm obviously talking about is Prize Picks. Right now, when you use my promo code Mikerophone, they'll match up to $100 of your initial deposit with another $100. And it's been a lot of fun. I mean, yesterday I had Killian Hayes getting less than 21 points, rebounds, and assists. You went into the third quarter with 18, and he finished the game with 20.5. I can't tell you how euphoric that feeling was when I saw that I was able to make $210 off of a pick that came within 0.5 of not hitting. So if you want to check out Prize Picks, make sure you use my promo code Mikerophone for a free 100% deposit match up to $100. And follow me on Instagram if you want to follow my picks on Instagram. Mic check 1212. What's going on, everybody? Dallas Cowboys have had significant potential, I'm going to admit, and there's some parts about this team that I'm very excited about.
I have a foot fetish.
A foot fetish?
Yeah.
You like toes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Love the way that they navigate the draft each and every year. It seems like they make the right pick more often than not. I mean, Micah Parsons 2 years ago. Tyler Smith seems to be a stud so far, although he definitely has a ways to go. Tony Pollard was a steal a couple years back, and this is just all off the top of my head. But where the Dallas Cowboys have always struggled was what to do once they draft this talent. Should they retain it? Should they cut him loose? Should they let him go? And that's what screwed over the Cowboys recently. And there's a lot of examples in this particular video. We're going to cover a lot of cap casualties and an impending Dak Prescott contract extension. Yes, I know a lot of people are not going to like this at all whatsoever, but I'm going to give you a dose of reality and tell you what's good. So let's start out with Ezekiel Elliott, the man that was drafted with the 4th overall pick in Dak Prescott's draft. If you guys remember, in 2019, Ezekiel Elliott signed a 6-year, $90 million contract extension with Dallas. This deal is solely responsible for ruining any chance that the Dallas Cowboys ever had at winning a Super Bowl. I truly mean that. Here's the thing. Whenever you have a quarterback like Dak Prescott, you have to understand that Dak Prescott could win a Super Bowl, but you're not going to win the Super Bowl because of Dak Prescott. He's not good enough to elevate his team despite making a significant salary on a year-to-year basis. He's not Patrick Mahomes, even though there's a commercial that suggests otherwise. He's a pretty solid quarterback. He's above average in my opinion. If you give him good wide receivers and good options and put him in a good scheme, he does produce, I'll admit, but he's not necessarily on that tier of quarterback that Patrick Mahomes is or Aaron Rodgers was before this season. He's not one of the top tier quarterbacks in the NFL, and that's okay. You could still win with that, in my opinion. But in order to win with that, you have to make sure that you crush it in building the team around him. And here's the thing. No team, especially in the past 10 years, has ever won a Super Bowl when they've been paying their running back more than $2.5 million. Yes. I mean, take a look at this chart. This is the leading rusher on Super Bowl teams and their base salary since 2009. And there's a little bit of cheating involved. If you take a look at the 2013 season, they put Percy Harvin in instead of Marshawn Lynch because Marshawn Lynch made $7 million, but they put Percy Harvin in there just to try to drive their point home, I suppose. The argument was that Percy Harvin was the leading rusher in the Super Bowl, but still, bear in mind, Marshawn Lynch made $7 million. But if you take a look at this chart, including this year with Isaiah Pacheco, he made $870,000 in base salary. Cam Akers with $890,000. You guys see this trend. The highest number that you're gonna see on this chart, recently at least within the past couple of years, was Leonard Fournette with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 2020 season, and that's because he was signed as a free agent after the Jacksonville Jaguars cut him. He was considered to be a very high-end running back coming out of college. So if you ask me, that amount for him was a steal, but for the most part, Tony Michel, LeGarrette Blount ×2, which for different teams, by the way, the Eagles and the Patriots. CJ Anderson, LeGarrette Blount for the Patriots again. Percy Harvin / Marshawn Lynch, if you want to inflate that number to $7 million. Then you have Ray Rice, Ahmad Bradshaw, James Starks, and Pierre Thomas. You get the point. None of these teams have a player that, if you want to include Marshawn Lynch, exceeds $7 million. But Marshawn Lynch was the outlier in this case. And that year, they also had a quarterback on a rookie scale contract. But you get the idea. None of these teams ever had a player that made $10 million as a cap hit, or that has a $17 million cap hit this upcoming season. This handicaps the Cowboys significantly. It already has. Last year, they traded Amari Cooper for pennies on the dollar. Why do you think that was? They didn't just wake up and say,
Hurt the dirt, I think it's time to get rid of Amari Cooper so CeeDee Lamb could show us how good he really is.
No, that's not what they did at all. They didn't have a choice. There's a reason why they traded Amari Cooper and extended Michael Gallup. And by the way, that didn't look like a good move either. This isn't a rant video. This is an informative video. So my apologies. My Cowboy fandom kind of gets in there, and sometimes I lose track of what I'm saying. So the Dallas Cowboys would save almost $12 million by cutting Ezekiel Elliott with $4.86 million in dead money. This is why you're seeing this narrative that Ezekiel Elliott might get cut by the Dallas Cowboys very soon. And although it's very easy for Cowboy fans to look at this and be a little sad because we all do have some sort of attachment to Zeke, I mean, look at what Des Bryant says about this. How can all the scouts and analysts agree to this? Zeke doesn't have to tell me shit for me to know he was sacrificing his unhealed body to give the Cowboys the best chance to win games, playing whatever role. But if you're going to talk about his game declining, make sure you talk about how badly injured he was. Make it make sense. Everybody will eventually take a step back, but nowhere near right now how they're trying to make Zeke look. Keep your mental tight, Zeke. I don't necessarily agree with this, to be honest. Ezekiel Elliott has taken a decent step back, man. It's just something that happens as a running back, and the reason why the Cowboys have been interested in keeping him is one, what he means to the Dallas Cowboys fans, and two, he's a remarkable pass blocker. He doesn't necessarily need to be the head guy in the backfield, but if he wants to stay with the Cowboys, he knows that he probably has to take a huge pay cut, considering the fact that he has 876 rushing yards off of 3.8 yards per carry and 12 touchdowns. But good news, it looks like Ezekiel Elliott is open to taking a pay cut. At least that's what we were told at the end of January. Ezekiel Elliott would take a pay cut to remain with the Dallas Cowboys. This is according to a report by the Dallas Morning News. Ezekiel Elliott has recognized that taking a pay cut from the $10.9 million he's scheduled to earn next season would help him fit better into the team's long-term plans. Zeke said, I want to be here. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you the future. I definitely want to be here. Now, I don't necessarily know if this is fake news or not, but I'm just going to show it to you just in case. You guys could verify this on your own. Apparently, Ezekiel Elliott's dad says that's cap and it's all fake news. So I don't know if Ezekiel Elliott's dad saying it's fake news is fake news, but I mean, I'll bring it to you guys and you could interpret it for yourselves. At the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily matter what Ezekiel Elliott's dad thinks because he's not Ezekiel Elliott. And I give a ton of credit to Zeke for understanding the situation he's in and being very realistic with himself. Cowboys will always find a way to give Ezekiel Elliott a role. Even if he doesn't get the full amount of his contract, he's made a significant amount of money for a running back, a very impressive amount of money. I mean, so far, and tell me this isn't impressive, he's made about $70 million in his entire career. So taking a pay cut to remain with the Dallas Cowboys would definitely be an intelligent decision, and it starts giving the Cowboys some options at this point. And it seems like that's what the Cowboys need. They need to figure out a very creative way around this mess that they're in, which is their salary cap situation. Otherwise, there's no chance for them to contend, which also means it doesn't look like it's just Ezekiel Elliott that might be done with the Dallas Cowboys. It looks like Tyron Smith may have played his last snap with the Cowboys due to his inability to stay healthy, which resulted in Tyler Smith showing that he's the long-term player at left tackle. Dallas would gain $10 million in cap space if they released Tyron Smith. The only thing I could compare this situation to is when the Cowboys released Larry Allen. I would say Tyron Smith was pretty much that type of player for the Cowboys throughout the 2010s. It's unfortunate, Father Time's undefeated. He's made so much money in the NFL and without a doubt has a legitimate resume to get into the Hall of Fame. If this is what has has to happen, it's what has to happen. The Cowboys need all the cap space that they can take. But that's not the only casualty that might come the Dallas Cowboys way. And bear in mind, I'm preparing you guys for all this. Dak Prescott is also set to have a $49.2 million cap hit in 2023. There's no way for the Cowboys to improve if they keep things as they are right now. Just bear in mind. So there's only one way to fix all this. No, it's not releasing Dak Prescott. Matter of fact, it's the opposite. So hold on tight. I know a lot of Cowboy fans are going to be really annoyed about this because a lot of people will blame Dak Prescott for the Cowboys' lack of success. And I don't necessarily blame you guys either, but Stephen Jones actually spoke to Todd Archer about what Dak's future is going to look like. So check this out. He starts by saying, "I got all the faith in the world that we can win this thing with Dak." Why? Because we know him. We know what he's about. His leadership skills are undeniable. Impeccable work ethic. Other than he hadn't won some key playoff games, he's everything you want from a quarterback. I'd say the fact that he wasn't able to win key playoff games is pretty significant, by the way. I do make a lot of excuses for Dak as to why he didn't succeed, but I'm just saying, as a general manager, if I was a general manager, which I'm not, I'd say, oh yeah, he's a fantastic QB. Other than the fact that he's not able to win the most important games of the season, but aside from that, he's a fairly solid guy and a great QB with a great work ethic. That's not all he said. He said, from the day you walked in the door, he's won a lot of games. We just got to get over the hump. And don't get me wrong, there's some changes being made. I mean, out goes Kellen Moore, in comes Brian Schottenheimer. Mike McCarthy is now going to be the offensive play caller in 2023, which could potentially help Dak Prescott a lot. But I think the important part here is what Stephen Jones says at the end of the article. We've got to have a plan to ultimately extend Dak. So by doing this, the philosophy is you have to keep Dak Prescott around for longer, but you can create up to $22 million in cap space with an extension. They could create even more room. That's the philosophy behind that. They need to do this no matter what. They have some decisions they need to make. Trevon Diggs this year, Micah Parsons in the future. Micah Parsons is going to get paid so much freaking money. Are you kidding me? CeeDee Lamb as well. There's some legitimate players that the Cowboys need to pay in the future. Players that make sense to pay. And as a result of some of their decisions in the past, they're kind of backed up into a wall. Now, Stephen Jones was actually asked about Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, but he just said, we're not afraid of the franchise tag. At the end of the day, we'll probably use it again this year. Tony Pollard is a prime candidate at a cost of $10.1 million. I don't have a problem with franchise tagging running backs. I actually think it makes a lot of sense. If you have to choose between paying a running back a huge long-term contract like the one that the Cowboys gave to Ezekiel Elliott, or just franchise tagging him just to get him for one more year, you don't know when the running back is going to run out of gas. So it's a safe way to make sure he's around for one more year and paying heavily for it, but also not committing to a human being that might not be that good in 2 years from now or 3 years from now, which I'm not really projecting anything for Tony Pollard. He's been remarkable. It's just running backs have been very, very difficult to figure out. Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think about all these decisions? Do you think extending Dak Prescott is going to be a horrific mistake? I think cutting Ezekiel Elliott would be a horrific mistake, or cutting Tyron Smith? Personally, I don't necessarily know how I feel about extending Dak. I think it could be a horrific mistake if they allocate those funds incorrectly like they have in the past. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.